First service, when Vince did a call to worship, I just so many things were hitting in my mind and my heart, and I just want to kind of begin there. We actually ended last week, or not ended, but there was a part of last week where 2 Corinthians 10:4 we talked about. And so I want to begin with something there and kind of going off of what Vince was saying and then take us in through this. So basically the way things played out in the first service, if you are here next week, I'll know that we're friends. So I'm just settle in, put your seatbelts on, things are going to get a little rough. But remember, I like long sermons. I like feeling like I get my butt kicked once in a while, and I'm about to just give you the gift of it's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year round. So, are you ready? I was so moved in the first service, the call to worship. I literally almost came up and said, listen, band, go ahead. Thank you for being here, but we're just going to continue with the sermon right now, because I was so moved. And it hit me with some of the debates, the discussions, and where we missed this. We will sing like we just sang, "You're all I want, you're all I want." But we don't live it. We don't live it. It's easy to sing it, and it's easy to be dramatic. You know, even my wife called me out this morning on it. She's not in here right now, but she did. I'm even there during Vince's call to worship, and she goes, "Boy, you're getting your head nodding on right now." I'm like, that's how I worship. It's just this. I'm not a hand raiser. I'm not that, but I'm this. It's like a funky groove that I'm going on, except when I got called out by somebody for singing the women's part this morning, because I've got the wrong part. But forgive me. Like that's me. I'm head nodding, and I was head nodding a lot. There's a lot in there. And what hit me was 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. But I want to back up a little bit in there. And let me turn there first. So 2 Corinthians chapter 10, this is perfect. I was worried about how much time we would have. I don't have baseball practice till 3. So we're good. We're so good. Oh, there's food pantry. Don't worry. That'll happen when I leave for baseball practice. So no big deal. And by baseball practice, I mean that team I'm coaching, not like I'm not trying out for baseball or anything like that. Anyway, so 2 Corinthians chapter 10, let's go verse 3. Verse 3. So we talked about verse 4 last week. The theme in Colossians, we're spending 3 weeks on Colossians 3. I'm bouncing around a little bit. Stay with me. Okay? Colossians 3 is where the theme is. Let me set kind of a tone for what today is and what this little side nugget is for free. Last week, we began Colossians 3 in this series with Colossians 3, 1-4 says, "Set your minds on things that are above where Christ is seated and not on earthly things." And the challenge for then how do we walk worthy of the Lord? How do we walk in a manner worthy? The first thing we saw last week was we got to set our minds on things above, not on the things of earth. If we're going to follow Christ, we got to set our minds there, focus on Jesus Christ, and look to him, not on the things of the earth. The problem is we get so lost in the things of the earth and what's happening in the world around us, and we miss that maybe my eyes aren't there, my eyes are actually here. And one of the verses we looked at with that is take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ, 2 Corinthians 10:4. So coming back to that section, 2 Corinthians 10, in keeping in mind, we are called to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. We're called to keep our minds on Jesus Christ, to keep our minds above on the things above where Christ is, not on the things of the earth. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10:4, verse 3, "For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh." Now, you can get ticked all you want today. This is a ticked-free zone. You're allowed. It's welcome. My email, vmaltempe@yahoo.com. Email me anytime you want. I'd be happy to listen to your complaints. If your first reaction when the school shootings happen, or shootings anywhere happen for that matter, if your first reaction is, that's it, I'm getting loaded to the teeth, and I am going to take care of business, you're wrong. You're wrong. I say it all the time, you cannot stop crazy. You can't stop anybody from who wants to really, really hurt you. And you are wrong if that's your first response as a follower of Jesus Christ. You're sitting here today like, I don't even know if I believe in Jesus. Hey, get loaded teeth, think you can do whatever you want. That's fine. You're living in yourself. We do not wage war according to the flesh. What is the first response of a believer in Jesus Christ? What should it be? If my first response when something happens is not this, I got a problem in my faith and who is Lord of my life. If my first response is, come on, I'm going to get you. I nearly tore everything in my lower half right there. I'm just going to admit to you. And I was a little worried the pants weren't coming up with me. So I was just like, rips everywhere. If if my first response is not that, as a believer in Jesus Christ, with Jesus as Lord of my life, I got issues. And I got to just admit to you, Jesus is not Lord of my life. I think he's my Savior, but he's not Lord of my life because I'm the God of this kingdom and castle. When it's my first response is this, buddy, I'll take you out. And that's been my response. I know it. Hey, I'm a man. I'm going to be a tough man. I'm going to do this. And I know that. But over the course of time, I pray that God is shaping our hearts and our lives and our response to say, he is Lord of my life. And my first response is this. God, help us. God, help these kids. Help these students. Help these folks. My first response has been this. My heart has been broken. I'm scared. I got in school. You know how many people in this church that are teachers, that are administrators, that are police officers? My first response is I'm praying for you guys. This is a little side note too, but I'm so tired of the world and the disrespect of teachers, of authorities, of police officers, of folks that are doing what they do, military. It's sickening. And I have family that do it, and it's sickening. These folks are waging war every day and putting their lives on the line. Teachers, even physically, putting lives on the line. You know, and even just emotionally putting themselves on the line. How many teachers have been just berated by some things we're going to talk about here in a second with anger and crap from parents because they didn't do something right? Don't ever, at least don't ever tell me you do it. Don't disrespect a teacher. Don't disrespect. If you got issues, you got issues. You got to talk about it. Talk, fine. Don't disrespect. Don't disrespect somebody who serves our country. Don't disrespect someone who is putting their life on the line and putting a badge on every day to go out and defend and to protect us. Don't disrespect people. Hit your knees and pray for them and pray for what they're doing. And that is my first reaction that I'm called, I believe, as a slave of Christ. Paul says, we do not wage war according to the flesh. And if your first reaction is, I'm going to fight online about guns and all this sort of crap, Jesus is not Lord of your life. I'm just going to tell you. You won't hear it, that's fine. For the weapons, verse 4, of our warfare are not of the flesh. They have divine power to destroy strongholds. You could take away everybody's guns. You could fight for protecting things. We're not being stupid as a church. We are working very hard to think about our safety and the things and how we do things here and protect that. We're not being naive. We're not being stupid. But you can't stop crazy, and you can't stop what's really at the depth and the core of this. It is a divine, or it is a spiritual kind of warfare thing that's going on. And how are you going to stop that with a gun? You aren't. It perpetuates the problem. We wage war in the spiritual realm because this is about the divine power that we have to destroy strongholds. As a believer in Jesus Christ, did you forget, have you so quickly forgotten that Ephesians 1 says that the same power that God used to raise Jesus Christ, his son, from the dead lives inside of us, that we have resurrection power inside of us? And we sit here on Sunday and we sing, you're all I want, you're all I want. But yet tomorrow when something bad happens, I'm going like this, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm depressed, I'm hurt. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives inside of you and me as believers. We have this divine power to destroy strongholds. And there's a stronghold of things that are happening in our country and around our world that I hope believers hit their knees. Now, if this is your only posture, well, I hit my knees, God bless you. I hope things go. At some point, you got to get up and be a friend. What Vince was saying. Start treating people the right way. Start talking to people. Start being kind to people. It ought to change our lives, what we're doing in here and when we go out there. So we destroy arguments, verse 5, and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of Jesus Christ, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Why? Because our minds are lifted heavenward, not on the things of the earth. I'm not worried about the stuff that's happening here. I got news for you, and this is going to shock you, and some of you don't want to hear this, and you don't want to talk it because you're living in fantasy land. There are only two things that are common for every person in this world. And we all share these two things in common. A day of birth and a day of death. You all are going to die. And guess what? I am too. I don't know when, thank goodness. But every single one of us are on hospice care right now. Every single one of us. But I thought as believers, this ain't my home. I can't wait to get there, but I will fight every step of the way to enjoy the excesses of this earth because I really don't want to go there. I want to stay here. That's the dominant reality of our lives. We don't think about it. Take every thought captive, make it obedient to Jesus Christ, and let that change our lives here and now, because we are called as believers in Jesus Christ to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. Every breath that you give me here and now, I want to honor you and to live for you in all things, and let that change who I am, who I'm becoming, and how I affect the world around me. That's just the for freebie part today. So Colossians chapter 3 fits, I hope, very well into this. The question is, how do we walk in a manner worthy of the Lord? How do we do this? Last week, and fitting with this, set your minds on things that are above. Set your minds on things that are above, not of the earth. Be focused and diligent on that, and allow that to begin to shape everything that we do. So from there, and we're going to begin with that reading, Colossians 3, 1-4 is what we did last week, and then we're going to continue on. We're going to spend 3 weeks in Colossians, so verses 5 to 11 today. So starting Colossians chapter 3. If then, here's the bobblehead time. If then, are you a believer in Jesus Christ? Because this passage is for you. If you're not a believer in Jesus Christ, I'm not sure about this whole thing, then what we're saying doesn't impact you the same way. It has to start there. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? If you're sitting there like, I don't even know if I believe this, and then some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, you're going to say you're crazy. I'm going to say it is crazy if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, because that's what changes all this stuff, okay? So Colossians 3:1, if you have been raised with Christ, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, is that you? Then seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on the things of the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. And when Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Shifting into this week. Put to death, therefore, whatever is earthly in you: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming. And in these too you once walked when you were living in them. But now you must put them all away: anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk from your mouth. Don't lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge after the image of its creator. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all, and Christ is in all. Question we're asking: how can we walk worthy of the Lord? How can we walk in a manner worthy of the Lord? Last week, setting our minds on things above, not on things of earth. A little more specifically now, consider this. Paul says, if you're a believer in Christ who is setting your minds on things that are above, then you need to put to death whatever is earthly inside of you. Ignore what I'm about to do. I just need a little sip of coffee. And I forgot my cup over here. Hello? Paul says, here's where it's at. Believers. I'm talking to believers now. Believers in Jesus Christ. If this is you, if you want to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, what's getting in the way? Put to death whatever is earthly in you. So my eyes are focused on Jesus. My eyes are to be on things that are above, not on the things of earth. But what is of the earth that is in me? What is earthly that is in me? What is of the sinful kind of nature that is in me? What is it, and what do I need to put to death? Again, we are not talking about salvation here. I am not saved by, well, I have to do this, and this. I can't tell you how many times I've heard over the years, well, I would go to church, but you don't know what I've done. I would go to church, but first I have to stop smoking and drinking and chewing and going with girls who do, and I do all that premarital dancing and stuff. It's horrible. You know, I'm such a horrible person, and I can't go to church. Do you all realize how stupid that is? That's wrong. And are Christians the problem? We're perpetuating that lie. Yeah, you have to be like good, cleaned up people like us. We all got problems. You know why I know everybody's welcome in this church? Because I'm welcome in this church, and because some of you are welcome in this church, and I know you. You got issues as well as I got issues. Back behind my computer, I got a little quote. C.S. Lewis said this: Just think of me as a fellow patient in the same hospital, having been admitted a little bit before you, and maybe I could offer some advice. I'm no different. I've been through those same, you don't know what I've done. You don't know what I struggle with. You don't know but I've been here. I've been here 20 years as a pastor of this church. I've been a Christian pretty much my whole life. So I just was admitted, and it took a long time to realize, because some of us don't realize that we're actually that sick person in the hospital. We were in the hospital in a gown. I've been in a hospital not too long ago in a gown. Wearing a gown, and the biggest thing I'm worried, my shorts still on, and I'm walking down the hallway to go to the bathroom, and somebody from church is going to see me, right? Stuff's just waving in the back. I know this is graphic, you don't want to hear about it, but it's just what happens, right? But here's what we all do. I hope next Sunday, every one of us, I would love to see just come in wearing hospital gowns. Just come on in, because this is a place for the sick, and this is where we're welcome, and we are all the same in this thing. Some of you don't think you're sick, and let me give you a clue. You're in the mental ward of this place, of this hospital, You're walking around, and you done forgot the shorts, and we all see it. We've seen everything about you, and you're walking around saying, hey, come talk to me, because I'm just like Jesus, and get to know me. You're crazy, you're sick. Because every single one of us is in the same boat, and we got problems. But guess what? The gospel is the good news of Jesus Christ. In Romans 5:8, it says, while I was still a sinner, walking around in my robe, my hospital robe, Jesus Christ died for me. While I was still a sinner, while I was still messed up, while I was still on whatever I was on, while I was still figuring out all my problems, Jesus Christ died for me. The cross is a symbol of this picture of God's arms opened up wide for all of us and saying, come home, come home, come on. Come home. If my home, if the children in my home were only allowed to be there based on their behavior, I would be a happy man, because I'd be living alone, right? They'd all be kicked out many, many years ago. Like, you're done. You're done. I was Dad, done. You're out of here. Like, you made a mistake. You're done. It was a home based on grace and love and forgiveness and compassion and trying to figire it out. I'll be a little coach like today. This is not, and this is a good kind of coach. There's a lot of bad coaches I see. There's this yelling and screaming. They got no business being a coach, because they don't even like kids. They don't like anybody. They just want to be a coach and think they know stuff. They're in the mental ward of this place. But I'm not a good coach if I don't sit back and, my little band of warriors that I'm coaching right now. I'm not a good coach if I'm just sitting there saying, hey, great job, guys. I'm just going to be a clown today. I can't hit the ball. No problem. No problem. No, come in and let's fine tune the swing a little bit. Let's work on this. Let's do, but I keep in mind they're 5, 6, and 7. So their greatest problems in the world are not figuring out how to hit curveball right now. They really don't care. But as a good coach, you want to come and help and guide them. As a pastor, it's the same kind of thing. But I've realized over the years that most people don't really want that kind of coach. If I was a clown coach at baseball, you would fire me. But as a pastor coaching your life, if I come down with some hard truth and talk about things, a lot of times you fire me. I'm gone. And the way you fire me in an independent church is because you've learned over the years, well, he ain't leaving. He's been here forever. I know how to get rid of him. And you leave, and you're gone. I hope that doesn't happen, because that's not what this is about. It's about us trying to talk about how do we better our swings? How do we better our life? How do we better ourselves so that we might honor Jesus Christ? That's what this is about. Are you here for that reason? And if you're here for that reason, I think there's some fabulous things to consider through this in Colossians chapter 3 that is written very specifically to believers. And there's 2 areas of sin that he talks about here. Areas of brokenness, areas that are presented here in those verses that we just read. And they deal with 2 kind of broad categories. Number 1, and this is fun. This is where, if you're here, we're talking about all the good ones in one Sunday. Sexuality and anger in our words. 2 areas of brokenness, and he lumps them all together. He talks about, but get rid of, throw away, trash it, get rid of the old, put away areas of sexual immorality, impurity, passions, evil desires, and covetousness. And you really take that list, and if you reverse it, you start to see how the pattern of sexual immorality happens. It doesn't just somebody wakes up today and say, I'm going to throw my life away by becoming addicted to something and having an affair and just throwing away everything with my family. It starts with greed and coveting, and it starts with growing in evil desires. It's passions that wage at war within us, and we never stop them where they're at. We never get help. We never talk honestly about them, and they slowly progress and want more and more and more, and they consume us and overtake us. And so really that's what Paul is talking about there. And I don't want to linger in a lot, because it's not, if I just at the end talk about tithing, we could throw all the really big ones out today. But you need to consider that and think about where I'm at with that and to be challenged. I want to say a lot. Oh, you know what? Did it in first service? You guys get it too. So fellas, you get one extra on this. Ladies, applies to you probably too a little bit, but in particular the guys. I'm staying man to man, toe to toe, and just say, hey, none of you want to talk about this. Every one of you want to run right now. I know. But I'm going to tell you right now, men, we got to get this in check. We got to get this in check. We flirt around with sin so much in our lives and think we can handle it. It's no big deal. I'm just flirting. I'm just talking. We are so stupid about that. Like, it's no big deal. Like, it's fine. I can handle this. I'm really tough. I'm just talking to this girl. It's no big deal. But you ain't talking to your wife. So it's a huge deal. I'm just looking at these images on. It's no big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And we as men, we really struggle. God has wired us visually. It's a huge deal. And the more you linger and flirt around with sin, nothing but brokenness and ugliness begins to happen. Nothing good happens. As a man of God, as a believer in Jesus Christ, I don't have this perfected. I struggle in these areas as any man does. But I believe in all my heart, my eyes are to honor Jesus Christ, my eyes are to look to Christ, and my eyes are to look to my wife, not to anybody else. And I'm to honor those two. If I stay tight with Jesus and I stay tight with Sarah, things go well in my world. Those are so important for us to consider. So he's talking about all areas of brokenness there related to things of sex and in ways in which that becomes so ugly. And it's sad, it's pathetic that the church doesn't have a better response to this. It's pathetic that the church doesn't talk about this more. It's pathetic that we just hide and don't talk about it when every one of you's talking about it. Every one of you. But if you're talking about it on Sunday morning, I don't like it's uncomfortable. Every one of you's talking about it. Every one of you's watching it. The filth that comes in our homes, my home too, that I allow on TV, and the amount of sexual immorality that I allow visually to be seen in my home because of movies and different things that happen. We ought to talk about it because our kids are talking about it and people are talking about it, and the church stays silent. And we wonder why there's so much sexual immorality even within the church. Because we have dark secrets that we don't talk about. It's time to bring it to light. Because God made sex for good, and God intended it for good, and to honor that between a man and a woman to be together, and a husband and wife to share in this intimate kind of relationship together. It's a covenant, it's a commitment, and we cheapen it when we make it less than anything else and anything that what God has put. Christians aren't fuddy-duddies. If anything, Christians honor sex more than anybody else, if we talk about it correctly. Let me put it this way. I honor sex more than anybody in the world, because I put it in the biblical concept of what it's supposed to be. So I value it more than anybody. I just caught eyes of younger people, and now I want to move on very quickly. So that's one area of this brokenness. The second area is words. Words, anger, rage, malice, slander, obscene talk, lying. These are the things that he's talking about in the second area if you're reading there in Colossians chapter 3. How are your words? How are your actions? Are the things that are coming out of your mouth? The areas of brokenness, areas of things that he says, it should not be amongst Christians. Christians shouldn't talk like that. Christians shouldn't be angry. Christians should not say that. Are we at times? Do stuff come out of our mouth that okay, I'm the only one nodding now. It's like you're silent. No, yeah. Yes, it does. But we need to get rid of it and acknowledge it and not make an excuse about it. This was wrong. I tell my kids often, sometimes dads have to say they're sorry too. I want to acknowledge the fact that, man, I blew up in that moment and that was wrong. It was wrong. The punishment fit the crime, and we need to talk about that, but there's times when my rage, my anger has gotten in the way, and it's wrong. I don't want to make an excuse about that. But at the same point, I want to put to death what is earthly. Paul says some of this is trash, and we are lingering with it, not realizing it. Some of the things related to pornography and internet and sexuality kinds of things, it's trash, and we're not willing to get rid of it. Paul says, put it to death and get rid of it. In Colossians 3, things with words and anger and malice and viciousness, it is trash, and put it to death and get rid of it. Well, I'm just a man fighting for truth. No, you're a jerk being so unlike Christ. Put it to death and get rid of it. And what's the picture and the model of what that looks like in a world today when everything has to be so passive and so kind of how do you do it? How do you do it? I'll give you an example. I think in a lot of ways I handled this correctly and some things that needed to happen, and it's how I feel about this whole imagery of putting to death and get rid of something. I've been, a few months ago, I was working remodeling my bathroom. Brad Tucker from our church was helping me out, and I felt such comfort when he was there. Just two men sitting in a bathroom working on stuff. I love sometimes saying things, just let that linger, let that set in. But when he was not there, I was scared and alone in the bathroom sitting by myself because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm going to wreck the whole thing. It was horrible. It was a nightmare. And I did so many things wrong, and I made so many mistakes and would get mad and angry. Well, one night I'm in there working by myself, and I hear Sarah tell one of our children, I won't name a name, but it's one of the two girls, so you can guess what, you can figure it out, but if you want to figure it out, you got problems anyways, you don't need to know on this particular situation. But I heard Sarah tell one of our kids to do something in the kitchen. I'm in the bathroom, and this was the answer of my kid. Prepare yourself, get your ears kind of muffled a little, because I'm going to give you how I heard it. No! And I went, oh, Jesus, take the wheel right now. As I'm about to come unglued. And I don't want to, but this needs handled. Child of mine, come here a second. And some of you, this will be offended, but again, I don't care, vmaltempe@yahoo.com. I don't need to spank my kids and through that where we're at in this phase of their life, but at this moment, there needed to be an awakening, an enlightened moment. And so come here. They walked in and I went smack, right on the face. And I haven't done that to any of my kids, I think, ever. And the look on their face, I broke their heart in that moment. I got them. I said, you go in your room right now and we're going to talk. I need to process. And this is what I did. This is where the good sermons come in. Because dads, the failure that we have, especially as us as men, is then we'd never followed up. We're good at smacking faces, we're good at smacking butts, but we're not good at heart-to-heart talking. You got to nail that. You got to nail that, especially with your girls. And I went in her room and I said this to her. I said, Hannah, there I go. I said, Hannah, I'm going to tell you something. I said, someday you might be married, and someday you might have a child of your own. And someday that child is going to yell at you. And if your husband doesn't come in that moment and slap your child on the face, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to slap your husband in his face. Because here's what you need to know. You do not disrespect my wife. Amen. That is your mother, but most importantly, that is my wife. And you do not disrespect my wife. See, what happened in that moment was filth, it was trash, and it is not welcome in this house. It's not welcome, and we're getting rid of it. But I'm going to come alongside you, and we're going to teach, and I'm going to bring you in, and now we're going to hug, and we're going to go get a yogurt, and we're going to talk, and we're going to be there, because a good coach comes alongside and says, I'm with you in this, but you need to learn and you need to be modeled for how you're treated. Guess what is also happening in a moment like that? She is being taught how she is to be respected and how she is to be taught, because no man ever better be yelling at my daughter. And I'm going to have a world of problems to try to figure out if when she's married someday some man is yelling at my daughter. I know I'm going to have a hard time with that. We don't know how to get rid of this filth, and we let it live. Ladies, and it's not about men being man haters right now, it's just being honest, but ladies, you're dating somebody, you're with somebody, and here's a great indicator, how people treat waitresses and children. If you're in there and they're screaming at a waitress at McDonald's, someday you're going to be the waitress at McDonald's and they're going to scream at you. I know McDonald's doesn't have waitresses, this is what I call them. If we cannot get our tongue under control of anger and malice and rage, if we cannot get where our eyes go and the things that we flirt with and allow, we will never get this right. Let me ask you it this way. And you want to raise your hand and doubt yourself. But seriously, this is a heart kind of question. How many people in this room, if you take these two areas of brokenness related to sexuality and areas of brokenness related to words, how many people in this room have been affected by one of those two areas? No. I'm going to tell you this, and I believe with all my heart, every person in this room has been affected somehow by one of these two areas of brokenness. It's actually very interesting to me that those two areas or those two categories are listed there in Colossians 3, where Paul is speaking to the believers and say, folks, we have got to get rid of this filth because it is brokenness and it is perpetuating brokenness and it is hurting people and it is hurting children and it is hurting men and women all across our land still to this day because we can't control ourselves in those two areas. Men, and why am I so hard on this with us? Is because we are not being modeled and taught this. We are being modeled and taught still to this day to be a tough man is to be big, strong, yelling and screaming, and conquer sexually. And if you buy into that, you are bought into a lie. You are bought into the lie of the world and the earth in which we lived. Your mind is focused here and not there. That is not what a strong man of God is. That is not what a strong man is. That is actually what a child is. Because a child throws temper tantrums and yells and screams anytime they want. A child cannot control themselves physically. That's a child. I want to know in this church, are we raising up godly men and godly women? There's a world of difference between a child and a man. I do not expect my son to act like a man, but I'm teaching him, I pray, how to become a man. It's huge. All right, we are 3 sentences into the notes, and we're good. The key in this, here's the key, and we're going to transition in a couple things. We'll get there. We can do this. The key in this is this. It's like somebody say, I got it. And so I'm going to and Matt Chandler, I got this from him. Like I'm going to white knuckle it. I'm going to try harder and I'm going to just pour myself this and I'm going to do it and I'm going to Lone Ranger it. I'm going to add, that's my freebie I'm adding with this one. It's white knuckling it and Lone Rangering it. Means I'm going to just try harder to get this right and I'm going to do it all by myself. That none of those work. If you get this right, if you get this and understand it, it's a transformation of the heart and the mind. Meaning, I can't do it. I can't try harder. I gotta release control. I gotta let go. And I gotta let God take over in my life and my heart. And I gotta let God transform this and say, God, I can't do this anymore. I've been trying my whole entire life. I've been trying to get over this. I've been trying to rid myself of this. I've been trying to stop this. I've been trying to talk better. I've been trying to act better. And it's not working. And I gotta let go of it. And guess what? I gotta let community in. I gotta let some other people know. I need help. I need accountability. I'm not saying stand up in this church and say, I just need to tell you all what I'm struggling with. Hey, if you want to do it and you're okay with it and you have the strength to endure it, praise God. But I don't trust this group. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I love you all, but I don't trust this group because it'll be posted on Facebook today. Actually, the minute you say it, it'll be tweeted out by somebody. Just saying, I'm just praying, but boy, Scott's got issues. People don't know what to do with that. But the Psalms, Psalm 32, I think it is, but David says, when I kept silent, my bones wasted away. I need to let some people in and say, hey, and again, men, we're notoriously bad about this. Like, brother, I need help. I need to talk about something. I got issues. I got some stuff I'm wrestling with. I got stuff I need to talk about. Ladies, anybody, like, it's time to let it go. Give it to God and say, I need accountability. That's why I think church is so important. That's why I think being here is so important. That's why I think being around a fellowship of a group of Christians is important, with accountability and talking to people. That's why I think it's important not only to come to this where you just listen to me for a little bit, but to get involved in a group, in a small group of people where you can connect and have some accountability and encouragement with this. We offer all sorts of Bible studies and programs and classes and CR program on Monday night that is specifically dealing with everything that I'm talking about right now, especially areas of related to words and brokenness and hurting and relationships. That's what it is about. And so getting involved and active in being a part of those things and showing up and being there and being present, it requires that in order to have a transformation of my soul and my mind and my heart. It requires a self-examination and holding up Christ as a mirror. In the text, the latter part of that, verse 10, it says, having put on, get rid of the filth, get rid of the trash, and put on the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge after the image of its creator. So I am called to hold Christ up as a mirror, not you. I don't want to look at you in the mirror. You're beautiful, wonderful people, but that's not the reason. It's I don't want to be like you. I want to be like him. I want to be like him. I pray, and sorry if this is too much on just the men, but I pray that there are a group of men at this church that I could point young men to and say, if you want to know what it's like to live a real life, look to Jesus, but I also want you to check out this guy because he's walking the walk, he's trying his hardest, and he's a real example of what a follower of Jesus Christ looks like, and he's a man of God. He's not a boy, he's not a child, he's a man of God who is wrestling with these things of the world. There ought to be both of that. But ultimately, every night, I want to hold up Jesus Christ. I want to ask myself self-examination kinds of questions. How am I doing in these things? How is my words? How are my actions? How are my behaviors? Why did this thing bother me so bad? I was with somebody else and this thing happened, yet it didn't bother them, but yet it tore me up. Why did it tear me up? Why did it bother me? Why did it cause such anxiety? Why did it cause me to react the way that I did? Why is my gut reaction this every time and not the posture of the knees in prayer? Why? I want deep kinds of questions about myself, not you all. I don't want to go to prayer every night and say, God, why is everyone a jerk around me? I mean, that's like my prayer. It's like, fix them and I'll be fine. God, change me. And I want to hold your son up to the mirror of my life, and I want to say, I want to look like Jesus. I want to act like Jesus. I want to talk like Jesus. I want to react like Jesus. I want to have compassion like Jesus. I want to speak truth, and I want to get rid of trash and the moral kind of filth in my life, but I want to be like Jesus in all things. And so every night, a self-examination, you can Google that, examine kind of things, questions. Just ask yourself those kinds of questions. How were your words today? How did you react to people? How did you treat people? Did you treat people if they were just a pawn in the chessboard of your life? Are you disrespectful to people? Were you disrespectful to your spouse at home? How were you with your kids? And at some point, if it doesn't make you then go, I'm laying in bed and thinking, man, I messed up. I said something awful. I don't know what I'm saying. I can't tell you how many times over the years, because I don't want to get up into this pulpit after I've had a fight with Sarah. I'm going to be honest with you. We fight a lot. It's what we do. People fight. And I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting there, and maybe from a distance, you guys look over and look at our pastor and his wife. They're just sitting there like, and let me turn the volume up. It's like, listen, you are a jerk and you're a butt face, and I am too, but I'm sorry because I got to go up and preach Jesus' message, and I've been a butthead to you for the last week, but I got to get it right and get it off my chest because I just feel guilty about getting up there. Hopefully it's not like that usually, but there are times when it's like, I'm sorry. What I said last night, that was wrong. How I said that was wrong. We got to self-examine and get that right so that Jesus would be the center of everything that we do. Allow Jesus to be the center of what we do. Last verse, and we'll start to wrap this, we're wrapping up. Here there is no Greek, no Jew, circumcised, uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and Christ is in all. Every single person is welcome into the doors of this church. It's not about you. It's not about your past. It's not about what you think you've done. It's about how amazing that he is and his invitation to come into our lives. And let's work to let Jesus be the center of our lives. It's a conscious choice to live with Jesus as the center. It's developing a new humanity, that we are one in Christ, where God does not play favorites. You think it's about you? That's fine. I know a wonderful church for you. I don't know it yet, but I'll Google one and I'll find one for you, because this church is not about you. It's about us. It's about a new humanity that's being created, of the people of God becoming the body of Christ. Band, if you guys want to come up, we are moving towards the end. It's a new humanity where Christ is everything. Christ is all. Christ is in all. And he is the dominant reality of our lives. He is not just some song we sing on Sunday morning. He is not just some book we read about on Sunday morning. He is all in everything of our lives. And that would change everything if we got it. May our eyes be raised to Christ, and may we get rid of the filth in our lives so that we would be different in this world and in this community. Have you ever met somebody, when you're talking with them, you knew exactly after a minute, you're like, they're not from here. Like, where are you from? How do we know that stuff? Have you ever, you know what I'm talking about? Accent. Sarah and I, our freshman year of college, we're both in South Carolina, and we were down there. They're always like, you guys have such an accent. Like, what are you talking about? You have the accent. You're different. It's accent. Might be how people dress. Like, but you're obviously not from around. You dress different. It's what you do with the word pop. Is it soda? Is it pop? Is it like, you're not from here because we say this, right? You know that somebody's from a different place, a different state, a different country. What if we lived in such a way with Jesus at the center of our life and in this church, that just right here, let's say right here in this community, we were at something, we were at Giant Eagle, we were over here, and somebody said, hey, what country are you from? There's something different about you. Your words are so different, your actions are so different, your responses are so different. Where are you from? My home? My home's in heaven. And what you hear in me is just that I've been around my daddy a lot, and I'm becoming like him. And I mess up all the time because I'm not him. I'm not my dad. But I want to be like him. And I'm growing like him, and I'm becoming like him. So what you see and what you hear in me that's different, it might reflect where I come from. And what's kind of cool is, it's where I'm going. I'm just passing through. And in the meantime, God put me here and here and there, I don't know. And if you want to know any more about my home, boy, I'd love to tell you about it because I love my daddy and I love my home. Stupid. I'm going to ask you right now, I'm going to tell you something I didn't say in the first service, but if there's anything in this message that you didn't like, don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. It ripped me when I was done in the first service. I'm just going to be honest and tell you, you have no idea sometimes what it's like to pour your heart out and then to worry. I'm going to wreck myself a lot today worrying what I said wrong. But I'm going to try not to do that today. Because it's this. I love my daddy. And I love where I come from. And maybe you don't like the presentation. That's okay. I'm not him, but I'm trying to point to him. And I'm just praying that our church would be different. That people would look at us and say, man, you guys are different. Where do you come from? And in that, we can say, man, this is my home. This is my home. Will you stand with me here? Let me just offer what would be traditionally called a benediction. It's kind of a prayer, but it's a benediction of just my prayer, my response for us. As believers of Jesus Christ, may we seek to rid ourselves of the brokenness of this kingdom. May we live in the image of Jesus Christ and let him be the center and restore us so as to live his kingdom here. May Jesus be the center of our lives in this church. May he be all that matters. Amen.